How are we going, folks? Today I have a bucket filled to the brim, overflowing even, with the wisdom of the benevolent leader of the People's Republic of Simon TV. Now, Simon is joined by Matt King, former National Party MP and leader of Democracy NZ, and he's discussing the question of what's wrong with German people. I don't want to expand on it too much. He will do so. I'll discuss it at the end. Just take a quick listen. Here's what Simon has to say.
Matt and I are of a similar age, and for those of you in the audience who are younger, I want to share something that we were taught to believe. This wasn't something anyone ever said to Matt and I. This was just the background knowledge. It was a truth in society everyone agreed with, and that is this: there is something wrong with German people. Right? There is some moral failing, philosophical failing, societal failing, racial failing that made German people worse than us. No other country could become Nazis. That Nazism only rose in Germany because there is something wrong with Germans. And we were effectively taught to believe that. And Germans were taught to believe that too about themselves. You know, Germans still today are still apologizing for what happened 70 years ago. But I think if there's one thing that COVID taught me, it's just how malleable people are, right? All it took in New Zealand was for a vacuous, vapid, incompetent, corrupt, authoritarian, horse-faced Mormon crack whore to frighten people, to frighten people day in, day out with her media apparatchiks providing 24-hour wall-to-wall cover, right? All it took was her doing that and them helping her for New Zealanders to unilaterally give up their fundamental civil rights and start reporting upon their friends and neighbors and even their family members for breaking the rules. It really showed me in COVID just how many people will just simply go along with what the authorities tell them to do.
Now, Simon's a friend of mine. We've done quite a few shows. We had the Eric and Simon show for a couple months. Great stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I will never, ever go 5 minutes in Simon's company without learning something. Very, very intelligent guy, probably more so than does him any good. But yeah, I love the point he makes here, because it highlights how we can lie to ourselves. We can gaslight ourselves into thinking that it takes a certain degree of moral bankruptcy to become what Nazi Germany was, but ultimately we are all capable of falling in line and becoming what it is that we claim to hate, to become what it is that we claim is immoral, to become what it is that we believe deep down is simply never going to be us. But what I really want to do is use this clip of Simon and pivot towards a discussion on cultural Marxism, because that's very much what's happening in society today. Cultural Marxism, which one might mistake for fascism. This idea that there are groups within society who are effectively the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, but it has absolutely nothing to do with economics, or very little to do with economics. However, the way they go about combating this is very revolutionary, is very militant, is very, one might argue, fascistic. And where Nazi Germany succeeded was drumming up the support on a cultural basis of the masses to get behind a means, right? Everything they did was a means to an end, and that's what they used to control the populace. The same thing with COVID. What we did was we said, okay, look, this is what we need to do as a society to reach this goal, to keep it out, to save lives. We convinced people, we had to do so by lying, but we convinced people to follow the rules, to follow the orders of Dame Jacindy Horseface, and people did it. Not everyone, but the vast majority fell in line and did what they were told. Cultural Marxism uses a similar process, And this is because Marxists realized that the middle class or the working class, the blue collar, not even the white collar folks gave a shit. Marxists figured out in the latter half of the 20th century that the working class wasn't particularly interested in what they were selling. It just wasn't. It wasn't that appealing to them. They were like, we're very consumerist. We like going out to work for stupidly long hours, bringing home a paycheck and being able to spend that on what we like. They realized the working class started putting material interests in front of other interests. And that was what drove them. And so no longer was what the Marxists were selling particularly appealing. And so it wasn't appealing to the working class, and it wasn't really all that appealing to, well, the white-collar workers either. And so what could they do to drum up the type of support that they would need for this cultural or Marxist revolution? Symbolism. Using things that people, irrespective of their standing in life, will feel a draw to get behind. And so, rather than focusing on economics, focusing on workers' rights to the same degree, they decided to focus on rainbow rights, LGBT communities, ethnic minorities, civil rights. By honing in on those things and pushing a narrative, getting strong symbols, ideological symbols that represent communities, and rallying people behind those causes, not only are you increasing the number of people eligible to get behind those causes, but you're more likely to attract them. That's why, despite the fact that Marxism in the Soviet Union really only came out of the hardship of Russians living under the Tsar, now you can get an entire Marxist revolution in a capitalist society where everyone's more wealthy than they've ever been in human history. Because no longer do you need to focus on the economics. At least it doesn't have to be the core part of it. You can focus on the emotion. You can focus on what matters to people. You can focus on virtue. And that's why virtue signaling is such a problem. It's just a call cry for Marxists to drag you in, to control you, and to achieve their revolution. That's all it is. And so, the same methods that Nazi Germany used, that Jacinda Ardern used to control the masses, that's exactly what cultural Marxists are using today. That's exactly what the likes of Emmy Jackson Rakete are using with people against prisons Aotearoa. It's exactly the same thing as what Toitu Tetiriti is using with their symbolism of their an Aotearoa Ho utopian vision. It's all just repackaged Marxism forced down your throats. And isn't it great that our media helps them? This is the society we live in. It's all around you. You just don't know it. So I want to hone in on that point one final time. There is nothing wrong with the German people. There wasn't then, there isn't now. What they displayed was humanity's natural lean towards strong symbols which stirred up something inside of them. That's what happened in 2020 when we were strongly stirred up inside to mask up, stay in our homes, follow single order lines in the supermarket 2 meters apart, to kneel and put our fists up in the air every single time the US national anthem would play, to march down the street waving a rainbow flag. It's all symbolism. It's all the same. And all of it left to fester and infect our society further. All it will lead to is the eventual decline of our society to the point of no return.